'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Okay. So, my experience with this movie is I remember being a kid and, watching YouTube, and I saw this like top 10 list of, I forget what it was. I can't remember if it was holiday movies or something regarding like 80s movies. And this movie was on that list. And I was seeing clips of it. I'm just like, what is this? Even when I was a kid. And then I remember watching and then listening at the same time a horror story video from Mr. Nightmare. And it was all about Christmas. And the thumbnail for it was the poster of this. And not knowing that it was the poster and everything like that. So I kind of saw it as like, oh, like that's some either really good Photoshop or really spooky photography. But then years go by and I completely forget about the movie. I then see the poster just randomly and I'm like, wait, that looks familiar. I then harken back to that list video. I'm like, oh, it's this movie. Okay. And then I was like, all right, well, eventually check it out. Eventually I did, because I kept forgetting about it. And honestly, the only thing I really knew about this was the second one. And its unforgettable line, "Garbage Day." So, yeah. But anyway, so Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's about a kid who was driving home with his parents one late Christmas Eve, when there is a guy dressed up as Santa Claus parked on the side of the road that needs assistance. But he's scared of Santa, just wants to keep going. But then his parents get killed by the Santa, who turns out to be a serial killer. Then when he grows up, he then decides, you know what, I'm going to basically kill all the people who I believe are being naughty. So it feels very much like if they put Santa Claus on top of probably the Friday the 13th series, where, if you do drugs, oh, you're going to get killed. If you have sex, you're going to get killed. Like that kind of thing. So it feels very much like that. And it also doesn't help that this came out in the 80s, when almost every movie that they were doing in the 80s was a slasher movie. So that kind of helps. But so yeah, this movie, it's very much, it feels like in the camp of the Friday the 13th films, where it's kind of like, okay, you have a premise, we need another slasher film. What do you got? Well, let's take Friday the 13th. Yeah, okay, as we should. Okay, what new can we do to it? What if the killer was Santa Claus and he was killing people who were being naughty? That's pretty much like Friday the 13th. Okay, let's go. So it kind of feels like that. It feels like they put a Christmas layer of paint on top of Friday the 13th, or on top of a slasher film. It feels kind of like that. And for the most part, it works. Like, the gore in the movie is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And yeah, if you don't know me, I always like gore in films, just because it's all practical and it looks cool. So those are cool. The kills, in a slasher film, you need some unique kills, like Friday the 13th did them. Halloween was kind of a close second behind for Friday the 13th. It seemed like Jason had a lot more fun with his kills than Michael ever did. But yeah, the kills are pretty cool and gnarly and awesome. But it feels very much like a Friday the 13th film in many ways. the backstory of why he became a killer, I think works, because, he had a lot of like trauma when he was a kid. Yeah. His parents got murdered by a serial killer dressed up as Santa Claus. And now every time when it's Christmas, he sees people walking around dressing up like Santa, and then kids are believing in Santa. So he then gets like flashbacks. So I like that added layer of backstory to this. I think it's well deserved. But at the end of the day, it feels like a Friday 13th, or a layer of paint added on top of a Friday 13th film. So it was the time period this came out in. Like I said, it was the 80s, when a lot of movies in the 80s were pretty much slasher films, because it was a huge moneymaker for not just actors and crews, but also like studios looking at it going like, oh, if we put a lot of money into a slasher film, people will run out and go see it. And it was a big moneymaker. So it depends on where you stand with like kind of mindless slashers. And, I always like some mindless slashers, but at the end of the day, I would like a added level of realism and, a little bit of story. This, I think, does it. I think this one does it. The added layer of story, like you get to learn why he is who he is, why he's doing what he's doing. And also it does feel a little bit more real than a lot of the Friday 13th films. But, that's just me. Because, in this, we don't have, Jason coming back to, we don't have a killer who comes back to life by somebody stabbing him through the heart with a giant like metal pole, and then lightning hitting it, and basically him coming back like Frankenstein. We don't have that. Or, we don't shoot him up into space and he burns up on re-entry. We don't get that. So there's an added level of realism to this, which I think works quite well. And like I previously said, the story elements I think work quite well. The acting, it's 80s slasher, so you kind of have to go with it or you don't. And if you don't go with it, then, the movie's kind of over. And the way it ends is kind of like we ended it this way, but that didn't stop him from making 10 plus sequels. And yeah, it's like, oh boy. Okay. Now it's almost a franchise now. It's one of those secret franchises where you kind of forget that it's a franchise. Cause yeah, I think to myself, okay, there's the first one and then there's the second one because of Garbage Day. Okay. How many are here? Oh, there's 7 of them. Oh, okay. This is a series. I had no idea. So it's one of those underground series where you kind of go okay, I'm aware of the first one and maybe the second one, but then after that, it's all a blur to me. So it's, oh well. So I think at the end of the day, this movie, it's in many ways, it's a mindless slasher film, but it has a mild charm to it that I think works. And, it's kind of comedic in some ways. Like some of the kills, I think are they're doing that kind of oh, that's horrifying, but then they do something comedic with it, and it's kind of okay, that's kind of funny. So it feels kind of like a mindless slasher film, but there's an added layer that I think works. And like I previously said, with the story or with the realism, it's a nice, good layer to have on top of a film like this that I don't think a lot of slasher films do have or did have. So, personally, it's an average to me. Do I see myself watching this again? Maybe. If I did maybe a back-to-back with this and the second movie, sure. But I wouldn't rush and watch this again. It might be a thing where it's just like, hey, I don't want to watch, just a Christmas movie like they show every year, like Christmas Story or Elf or anything like that. Let's just watch something kind of mindless. This would kind of be up there. It would be kind of like all right, well, I got this. Like, okay, let's watch that. And you'd have a good time watching it. So I think at the end of the day, it's a fun movie to watch. And yeah, I'm now, thanks to the sequel, I'm now making sure that I take out my garbage, but I make sure I watch my surroundings before I do so.
You've made it through Halloween. Now try and survive Christmas. Silent night. Deadly night.